So today we would love to invite Anna Weymouth to our Career Insight Meet and Addictions Counsellor. So Anna is an Addictions Counsellor and Harm Reduction Lead for Turning Point. So welcome to the Ascend Learning Trust, and we've got some students here today ready with their questions to ask you about your role. But before we do, please, we'd love to hear a bit of an overview of what you do and what your role is. Thanks, Anna.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having me, firstly. So yes, I am an addictions counsellor and harm reduction lead for Turning Point. Don't be thrown by the Connect logo behind me. That's our kind of, you will either kind of hear of us as Turning Point or Connect. We are the same thing. Connect is just our kind of local name, whereas Turning Point is a nationwide organisation. So Turning Point basically helps people who have issues with drugs or alcohol, who might present to us when their drinking or drug taking gets out of hand and they feel like they need some support with that. So they would present to us as a service, and then there are lots of different people within that organisation who can help to support them. So my role there, like I said, I'm a harm reduction lead. I'm an advanced practitioner, and I am a qualified addictions counsellor as well. So yeah, part of my role is to help support people who come to us with drug and alcohol issues.
Great, thank you, Anna. So we've got lots of questions here with our group. So would you like to start?
What's the most common thing people struggle with?
The most common, do you mean sort of specific drug or alcohol or that kind of thing, or is that?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would say that we have a lot of people that come to us who are dependent on alcohol. That has increased substantially in the last few years, probably since COVID actually. I think lockdown and all of the issues that we faced during the COVID time really kind of highlighted these issues to people, and so we see a lot of people coming through our door that realise that they need some support really around their alcohol use. But really we have people coming in who take a hard drug such as heroin and crack and that kind of thing, and then other people who might smoke cannabis and have problems with that, and it's starting to affect their lives. But I'd say alcohol is probably the main one, but we do see a whole host of different substances and things that are causing people issues that come through our doors.
Okay, thank you.
What does an average week look like?
An average week, wow, that's really difficult actually to say. So it's quite difficult for me to answer that. I'm going to answer that in kind of two parts actually, because my role has changed slightly recently. And I don't do quite as much client-facing work as I used to, but I know you're probably all really interested in client-facing work. So before I became advanced practitioner and was more kind of desk bound and kind of leading a team, an average week would look like there's quite a lot of admin involved, because once you meet the client, you have to obviously document everything. That's a really important part of any role really within health and social care. You have to document everything, so a lot of admin involved. But it would really involve inviting my clients in. We've got two hubs in Wiltshire, one in Salisbury, one in Trowbridge. And clients will come in and have meetings where you kind of sit down and you talk to them about how they're getting on with their treatment plans. So you would create what's called a care plan to help clients to meet their goals, whatever those goals might be. It might be that they want to stop drinking entirely, or it might be that actually they want to cut their drinking down just a little bit, that they find that they're drinking just a little bit too much. And then we work together. It's a really kind of we do a lot of joined up working with our clients. It's not about kind of us sitting down and saying you must do this to meet your goals. It's a real two-way thing. So we work out what a client could do to meet their goals, discuss how they're getting on, and come up with plans, really come up with treatment plans. At the moment, my job actually is, as harm reduction lead, is kind of keeping people that come into the service safe before they really kind of want to look at recovery. So before they want to start making goals to make any big changes, my role at the moment is looking at how we can reduce harms, so how we can give advice to stop people from harming themselves while they're still drinking or using drugs. And through the week, sorry, that I realised it was through the week, not a day.
That's a busy week.
Yeah, exactly. So really, as a recovery worker, the week would be very, very client focused. So you'd be meeting with lots of clients all through the week. You would also be meeting with professionals as well. So there's a lot of working with other partner agencies. So as a recovery worker, you might have a client who has children, and maybe their children are looked after by social care as well, and they're involved with the family. So you would potentially be having meetings with social workers. You might be having meetings with other professionals involved in the client's care, so might be mental health workers, that kind of thing. But predominantly as a recovery my week can look like working with clients, doing that harm reduction thing that I mentioned, or I could be out training professionals. So at the moment I'm focusing on doing a lot of naloxone training, which naloxone is a drug that is used to reverse a drug overdose. So we are focusing a lot on training other professionals in using that. I do a lot of training in basic drug and alcohol awareness. I organise a team of people who are the outreach team, who basically go out and deliver interventions kind of out on the streets and to hard to reach people. And I attend a lot of meetings and do a fair amount of admin as well. But it's a very varied week.
When you say you meet with your clients, where do you meet them?
So as a recovery worker, so our recovery workers who do the kind of the bulk of the client work when a client is in treatment with us, that is always done at a hub. So it'll either be done in the Trowbridge hub or the Salisbury hub. As an outreach worker, so I'm kind of looking at two different teams here, outreach workers tend to go out and about. So that might be kind of brief interventions. So it wouldn't be necessarily full on sort of long appointments, but when we have our interactions with clients, that would be kind of maybe in the street or yeah, kind of out and about, maybe at drop-ins, at food banks, that kind of thing. So yeah, it varies, but as a recovery worker, it's always in the hub, in the office, so to speak.
Thank you.
How did you find out this job existed?
Lots of Google searching, actually. So I searched for it online when I knew that this was something that I wanted to do, and I saw that it existed. I think I'd heard friends talking about drugs workers and things before, and so I had a vague idea, but yeah, I looked it up on the internet and saw that these job opportunities existed. I remember when I was younger, I had lots of meetings with kind of career advisors and stuff like that, but it was never mentioned at that point. It was through research that I did myself at, later on.
Where do you work and what does your day-to-day working life look like?
So I work in Trowbridge. I do occasionally have to go over to Salisbury, but I am kind of mostly based in Trowbridge. And yeah, like I said, my kind of day-to-day at the moment is logistics, really, at the moment, organising a team of outreach workers, making sure that they're kind of covering, because we cover the whole of Wiltshire. So making sure that they're kind of out and about in Wiltshire. I'm also, as an advanced practitioner, I might be duty manager in the hub, or I might be out training other professionals in drug and alcohol awareness or naloxone and that kind of thing. Or I might be speaking to clients about harm reduction stuff.
Are there things you struggle with when talking to people who struggle with these addictions?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's not always easy talking to people who are struggling with addiction. There's a really strong correlation between addiction and trauma. So most people who we come across will have some kind of trauma in their past, which talking to people kind of day in, day out about potentially what led them to start taking drugs or alcohol excessively, it can affect you. And it can be really difficult to hear. Sometimes it can be kind of traumatic hearing about other people's trauma. So that can be a struggle, but a huge part of this role is learning how to cope with that, and a lot of kind of self-care, and you have a huge amount of support. I have a huge amount of support within the organisation. So we have monthly official kind of meetups with managers, which is a chance to reflect, and also if you need debriefs or to talk about something that you've heard in between those official meetings, then the door's always open. And I'm really careful with knowing if something that's been discussed has affected me. I do a lot of self-reflecting and make sure I take myself out for a walk or listen to music or do some exercise or something like that, just to make sure that I'm kind of safely putting it out of my mind and not taking it home with me at the end of the day.
What were some of the challenges you faced along this path?
I would say one of the biggest challenge I faced getting into this role was when I found out that this job existed. I found a degree course that was an addictions counselling course that was absolutely perfect, and I knew that I wanted to do that course and that would lead me to this role. When I applied for this degree course, I was in my sort of mid-30s at the time, and I applied for this degree course and didn't get in because I didn't have the right qualifications to be able to do the degree course. So that was so disappointing. I decided that I really wanted to do this course. I was so excited for it. And I remember the disappointment when I had the letter back saying I hadn't been successful with my university application. But I quickly turned it around. I listened to the advice that was given to me, what I would need to be able to do the course, and I then went away and did an Open University qualification that would then allow me to get onto the course the following year. So I went and did that, got my head down, studied really hard, and then the next year I applied again and I was successful to get onto the degree course. But that was, I can remember now, the disappointment that I faced when I didn't get in. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge. And yeah, and then I kind of got into the role and have just been swept along by it since, I'd say.
Oh, thank you, Anna. And just thinking about your qualifications for the students here listening today, if they're thinking they want to go into some form of career where they're helping people, they're supporting people, maybe some therapy or psychology, or even going into the departments that you've told us about, what would you recommend would be good subjects for them to study at school?
I think psychology is a fantastic subject to study to give you a kind of overall understanding. I'd say sociology as well, and potentially criminology. So those three: psychology, sociology, criminology. I don't know what is offered at school these days. It's been quite some time since I was there back in the day when it was John Bentley. And I know things have moved on a huge amount since I was last there. But those three subjects, I think, give you a really, really good overview of society, of humans and how we work, what affects us, kind of, yeah, it gives you a really good baseline understanding of people and the issues that we face as a society, and all sorts of different things.
How many patients do you see in a day, and how is training required?
So patients, when I was a recovery worker, because it varies so much now that it's difficult to say, but back when I was working sort of more client focused, I would say that I would probably see maybe 3 or 4 a day, but I do manage my own diary, and I did manage my own diary back then as well, so it's really about sort of how many you feel comfortable, and kind of, because bearing in mind you have to do all the kind of write-up and all the documentation and everything afterwards as well, so it's how many you feel able to fit in. But you know, we do have fairly high caseloads of clients, which means that you're looking after an awful large number of people. So you might be looking after, say, 60 people, so it might, you know, you might want to meet with kind of 3 or 4 a day, that kind of thing, just to kind of make sure that you're seeing them frequently, and updating their care plans and things frequently. Was there another bit to that question that I missed, or?
I think you'd covered it actually. Did the second bit of the question?
Oh, the
So it's about
training, wasn't it?
training. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've covered
Is there any more you want to let us know about the training, or different levels of training, or?
No, I think for this particular role, I went down a really specific training line. So like I said, I did addictions counselling specifically. Back then it kind of was necessary, but now it's not really necessary. You don't have to have a degree in addictions counselling to do the role that I do. There are many different transferable skills. And also I knew that I wanted to work with people who were living with addiction. Whereas I know that maybe some of you there today might want to get into a more broader kind of counselling role, that might work with people with addiction, but also people with lots of other issues as well. And there are loads of different ways of getting into that. There are brilliant counselling courses put on at the local colleges and diplomas, and it's really quite easy to access if that's something that you're wanting to do and wanting to look at.
What advice and tips would you give to young people to ensure they don't become addicted to anything?
I think for me, the main thing is to talk. I think I touched earlier on the correlation between trauma and addiction. And I think, you know, some people will experiment with drugs. It's, you know, that happens. Most people don't get addicted to drugs. However, you know, when I see my clients and the people that I work with, there is often talk about their drug use or their alcohol use being a kind of self-medication. So they do it to take some kind of pain away that they can't cope with. And I think that, you know, in a lot of sort of instances, had these individuals had an opportunity to talk and kind of work through problems at an earlier age, it wouldn't have reached, you know, the situation that it's got to now, when they're kind of really entrenched in using alcohol or drugs as this coping mechanism. They could have learned other coping mechanisms sooner, if that makes sense. So I think being open about issues that you're facing always is a really important part of growing up and in way into adulthood as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. It's really insightful. Does anyone have a last question before we finish? No. Okay. Yeah, lot to take on board and a lot to think about. I mean, you mentioned you came to school here, so do you have a memory of your best memory of when you were at school here yourself?
It's difficult to think of a best memory, but I'll tell you a memory, which might be quite funny for you not to hear, is when I was there at school, we had 2 schools. So we had 2 wings. We had North Wing and South Wing. South Wing is the building, well, I don't know if it's the exact same building remains. A part of the building, I think it's expanded quite a lot, that you're in now. And then North Wing was right down by I think it's the Finamore estate, and we used to have to commute between classes. So we might have maths, I'm making myself sound ancient here, we might have kind of maths in North Wing, and then we might have geography in South Wing. So we'd have 15 minutes, basically our break time. So we'd be eating our snacks whilst we were walking right up the long road up to South Wing, and had to do that sort of every day in between classes. And that's one of the things I always remember. Of course, North Wing is gone now. It got knocked down in 1998, I think.
Wow, that kept you all fit. I would imagine.
Yeah. It
Super. Well,
did.
thank you so much for your time. That's absolutely amazing. And we will definitely, as careers guidance counsellors here, will be definitely letting people know more about this opportunity for supporting and helping people and linking the subjects that you mentioned, psychology, sociology and criminology in particular. Okay, thank you very much,
Fantastic.
Anna.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope it's been useful.